Hi there, and thanks for joining this session on Carbon Black's app control solution. The app control solution is an on-premise solution. It's powered by a Microsoft server with minor SQL, IIS, and .NET requirements. To learn more, you can take a look online at our user exchange and reference the publicly accessible operating environments requirement documentation. Jumping back to the application control solution here, I have a local server with the app control solution installed. And we'll go ahead and log into the administration portal. Now, application control is a very different approach to endpoint protection than traditional antivirus or next-gen antivirus techniques. The former will take a view into the environment where they monitor everything that's happening and then try to detect bad. This solution will take the opposite approach. We will instead trust nothing, and in the end, implement an inherent deny posture. This is very powerful and aligns to zero trust initiatives, but does require some initial approval of legitimate items. For that reason, the deployment of the application control solution will typically be in 3 phases. The initial phase would be a low enforcement or visibility mode. When deployed out initially, this low enforcement mode will begin populating a number of different asset catalogs within the app control platform. Here you'll find all of the computers or machines you've deployed to, all files, applications, and certificates present on these machines, and of course, all removable devices or mass storage media discovered across these endpoints. Now that we have a foundation of what exists in the environment, we can begin to paint trust across these items under the Rules Software Rules tab. Now, one of the key strengths for the app control solution offered by Carbon Black is not just the end result of an inherent deny posture, but the flexibility or the number of different ways in which you can implement approval within this solution. That's so important because when the end result is to deny all net new unapproved change, addressing 99% of the items will not be good enough. Any gap will be a recurring pain point. So our flexibility here in terms of automating approval with a number of different mechanisms is highly valued. One of those measures, which we see on screen here, is a reputation-based approval mechanism. This is a very easy and helpful and automated measure that will take a large amount of the lift off of an administration or implementation team. You can see here in my environment that I'm approving items that have a trust score from Carbon Black greater than or equal to 8. Now we provide trust on a scale ranging from 0 to 10, where 0 is low and 10 is high. And in this case, we're putting the good reputation for known items to work for us. If we take a look at the assets applications catalog or files catalog in my environment, we'll see why something like that can be so helpful. Out of 13,000 or so binaries in my small lab environment here, we can see that the majority and the large majority of those have a trust score equal to or greater than 8, 9, or 10. So with one individual rule like that, I've addressed a large amount of the items in my environment. Of course, one rule is not all you will need. However, it's a very helpful rule to start with. Another noisy common vector of change will be updaters. You'll find an updaters catalog within the app control software rules here, giving you the ability to approve automators that you would expect to be a mechanism of change legitimate within the environment. Furthermore, you'll find that you can also approve based on the publisher. You'll also have the ability to leverage trusted directories. Now, trusted directories are not necessarily what they seem on the surface. Trusted directories give you the ability to create a walled garden of curated, trusted content for your team. If you were to define a trusted directory, that is not synonymous with a trusted pathway. Instead, when you create a trusted directory, any item you place into that directory will now be globally approved for all users, regardless of the pathway in which it's found on their machines. This is incredibly helpful as it gives you a quick and easy drag and drop like experience to quickly and easily curate content that you want other team members to be able to leverage. Outside of some of these quick and easy bulk approval mechanisms, you'll also find the ability to leverage rapid configurations. Now, with our 20+ years in market, we've seen a number of different ways in which teams wanted to engineer specific use cases out of our custom rules, which we'll take a look at shortly. Instead of requiring each team to engineer these use cases via custom rules, Carbon Black has, of course, put in the work to ensure that these are pre-prepared and delivered to you as rapid configurations. Each rapid configuration here is essentially a bundle of individual custom rules, all aimed at a select use case. If we take a look at the list here, we'll find items around browser protection. So outside of just allowing certain browsers or denying them or approving them, here we're now putting in place restrictions around what these browsers are allowed to do to prevent against their abuse. We'll find similar types of controls downstream for items like PowerShell, Mimikatz protection, additional ransomware hardening, etc. On the flip side of that coin, we can also put these rapid configurations to work in terms of driving automated approval. You'll see one up above here specifically aimed at SCCM. Now, I really like this as an example because it highlights how you can leverage this solution to not only apply trust based on the items in the environment, but based on their delivery mechanism. In this case, you can think of this rule as painting trust around the pipeline of SCCM as a delivery mechanism. So if you or your team needed to publish legitimate tools out to your environment, instead of having to come into the application control solution, approve them previously, and then deploy, you could instead just go and deploy through SCCM, and they'll inherit the trust granted to that pipeline. Now, outside of the rapid configurations, you'll also find the ability to get at the underlying rules engine through custom rules implementations. Custom rules give you the ability to implement environment-specific use cases as needed and can be incredibly handy. To touch on this, we'll create a new custom rule and run through a few examples. One of the most common types of custom rules that can be put in place is a file creation control rule. This gives you the ability to leverage some of those tricky edge cases I discussed earlier. Let's say, for instance, you had some application that was either built in-house or maybe it's some obscure third-party application, and it's constantly creating hundreds of new DLL files. And of course, instead of using reputation, you find that the reputation for these items is not present yet. So instead, you think maybe I'll use the certificate approval mechanism, but it turns out that this vendor is not signing those DLLs. In any event, there can be odd situations where it would be difficult to automate the approval. With a file creation control rule, you could instead say, hey, we would like to go ahead and approve the creation of C program files tool star.dll files. And maybe I don't want to just grant carte blanche to anything creating DLL files in that pathway. And I just want to say that a specific process, maybe in this case, an updater executable in that pathway, will be allowed to legitimately create those items. Again, a really helpful way to address some of those odd and tricky edge cases that in other application control solutions may be a recurring pain point. Another really interesting use case is execution control rules. These give you the ability to really control exactly what is or is not allowed to happen in the environment. A specific example I like to highlight comes from my work with the team in the past. What we had was a situation where via File Explorer in an application, end users were able to escape that application and get access to command or PowerShell. Now, what we wanted to do here was block all use or illegitimate use of command and PowerShell. So in this case, we'd want to go ahead and say, we're going to deny all use of command and we'll deny all use of PowerShell. Now, that seems like a good idea, right, on the surface, but of course, this isn't going to be good on its own or in a vacuum. If we're going to block all use of PowerShell from any process or any user, that's going to break some things, right? The cool part about these custom rules is that they're triaged in a rank order. You could think of it somewhat like a firewall. In this case, we could put in an inherent deny rule to block all use of these utilities, but then directly above it in precedence, we can allow the legitimate processes and or users or user groups that we would like to be able to leverage those utilities. Again, just really helpful to have this kind of direct control. I've also seen teams use this to help rein back in the control of an environment where they still have end users with administrative rights, giving you the ability to draw a line in the sand, if you will, with this solution. Outside of the approval mechanisms, which are of course quite interesting, one of the things I always like to zoom back and take a look at is the overall management. So again, taking a step back, we've deployed in law enforcement. This solution has gotten a window into what exists in the environment. We've put some effort in through approval mechanisms and the software rules to address items that exist in the environment, etc. And now our final goal is to escalate into that inherent deny posture, which we would refer to as high enforcement. How do we know if we're ready, and what will it be like once we make the switch? There are a number of different items here which make the education before making the switch and your management after making the switch much easier. I really like to touch on the reporting tab. The reporting tab gives you the ability to look forward, if you will, at what items would be blocked by the solution in the environment if or when you ever escalated into high enforcement. In this case, we can see a couple items in my lab environment here that are called out as new processes unapproved, items that would be blocked if I were to move the solution into high enforcement. This is really helpful, and these types of insights will be something that you will have the ability to leverage to predict and educate yourself on what still remains to be addressed within your approval rules before you escalate into the high enforcement posture. Once escalated into high enforcement, you'll of course be able to keep tabs on any blocks that occur across the environment if needed. So you could go down and look at a number of pre-prepared reports here and take a look at all net new banned files across the item or net new unapproved files across the environment to see where blocks were occurring. Similarly, you can look at all block files across the environment, and this will give you a window into everything that'll have been blocked across your end user's environment. Now, outside of seeing what was blocked, your end users will also have the ability to submit approval for approval requests if that's something you'd like to enable. To highlight this, I'll jump back to my dashboard here. And if we take a look, we'll see an example VBS script on the dashboard. I've just tried to run this, and I created this a few minutes ago. It is a benign file, it's not malicious. However, again, this helps highlight the benefit of that inherent deny posture from Carbon Black. In this case, this file is not approved, so it's not allowed, and I would like it to be blocked as such. In this case, if I was an end user here and I had a legitimate need to leverage some tool that I was trying to download, I could submit an approval request. Email address can be pre-configured by you and your team so that they don't have to remember who to send the request to, and then they can go ahead and assign priority. After an approval is submitted, you of course can receive email notifications based on your preferences. In addition to that, you'll also request directly within the Tools Approval Requests Administration panel within the console. When approval requests are submitted, you'll have the ability to quickly and easily escalate the request if needed, close the request, approve the file locally for that user and then close, or approve it globally and then close if you see fit. Overall, these are all aimed at ensuring that the administration is easy and seamless.